what was very helpful for me was gaining an insight into how my scientific endeavors were actually more fundamentally also religious in nature. Because I wanted to know the truth all the time. I wanted to know, not implying that I know it now, but I do claim that I'm orienting in an entirely different direction, and that it is aligning much more with this feeling that I was always chasing from early childhood. And I just always wanted to know, how does something work? Why is it like that? And then, as I mentioned in the last video, I went down the rabbit hole of empiricism, scientism, in the reductionist paradigm. And there I was, basically sitting in advanced physical chemistry class, being like, okay, this is not it. Like, this doesn't help me be a person. And only then did I notice or realize that that's also something I wanted from this. Because something that was always connected to all of these endeavors was to understand myself. And psychology, neurochemistry, all these things were, for my personal life, just available paths to look for that on. And it was just super frustrating, because there I was studying biochemistry. And note, I am now imposing a framework on those experiences. These are not the thoughts I exactly had at that time. And I am interpreting and now changing the past in my retelling of it. But I don't think that that's necessarily a problem, because I could never depict the past in any accurate way anyways, because it's completely subjective and also non-existent and exists. Everything is in the present moment, so everything that has happened, I'll say, informs this present moment, just like the potentials of the future are informing the present moment. Though that languaging is already tricky, because it's still implying 3 points. But I do think it could be helpful to language it like that in order to transition maybe from this world that we live in, where we're sandwiched between our very real past and our very real future, totally forgetting about the present moment. And it can make a spectrum out of 3 fixed points, and then perhaps facilitate letting go of that at all. So anyways, I can tell you that and there is truth in this, that I was miserable embedded in this academic endeavor, trying to figure it out, and always wanting to understand myself, and then being caught in this identity game, thinking, oh, this is my thing, and now I found my thing. Here I am at university studying this stuff that I've always been so interested in, and I'm really not happy at all. And I'm missing basically the acknowledgement of my soul. And when you're living in a reality, which in the secular, reductionist, materialist world nowadays, in the West, which overproportionally influences everything else, you are unable to acknowledge you have a soul. The word soul specifically is something that actually I'm surprising myself by using it right now, because I haven't had a particular instinct to do that. However, it's accurate for what I'm trying to convey, pretty much. And it's an extremely sad existence when you are basically constantly in this life based on the assumption that you are nothing but a biological machine, that you're nothing but a machine made up of squishy bits, that there is no purpose to anything, and that for someone like me who was researching these things, the conclusion to be drawn from having feelings is, oh, it's just the neurotransmitters and it's just hormones and stuff like that. I'm not against science now. Of course not. But I'm seeing it not as the answer to everything anymore, and I'm acknowledging it for its domain, in which it does bring actual results, which you can tell by, for example, the functionality of technology born from it, which I'm also not against. But as Evan McMullen said on his STOA residency talks, which I would dearly recommend to anyone, and I think he was quoting somewhere else too, but that's the last step where I can point where I got this information. He was talking about how science and religion are both the endeavors to, understand existence, and the further away from your own domain, being science or religion, you look, the duller your tool, and the more muddy and confusing and weird and unhelpful the answers from that will be. Namely, science, and I'm talking about the type of science that exists now. And also the type of religion that exists now, or the way people are practicing both of them. Not a potential for a harmonious coexistence of them. Because currently it's very real that they are not harmoniously coexisting. And so when you're coming from current materialistic, reductionist, empiricist science, trying to explain God, trying to explain feelings and love and preciousness and beauty, aesthetics, harmony, and such things, it's just not the framework in which that can ever be explained and just gotten at. Just like when you're trying to explain an actual specific process, like a physical relation, something like that, it's not helpful to point at the sky and say that an almighty God is doing it, or at least that's not all the way to go, meaning that remaining there, it's a vapid statement that cannot be used for anything really. And who knows where this will go. There was an excellent conversation on You Talking by Bonita Roy and Matt Segal being guests on Greg Enrique's show. And they're talking about some really interesting ideas of how science could live in harmony with the spirituality that is utterly necessary for human beings to thrive and live in harmony with their cosmos.